Hello, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to my channel if you're new here. My name is Angey Lee. Today we are cooking, as you can see from the thumbnail, banana bread. And some of it got some chocolate chips. So I haven't had banana bread in a long time and my son requested it, so I'm gonna bake it. Cake pans. Okay, well, first I started off with getting my ingredients prepared because there's nothing that drives me more nuts than having to stop and do things while I'm trying to film, or watching people put out a cooking video where they're not ready. It just bothers me. We are going to take just a tiny bit of butter. This is the measured out half a cup of butter that we need for the recipe, and I put it in the microwave to soften it. And we are going to use a little bit of this butter to grease our pans. Using a spatula, one of these kind, you don't waste any of your butter, whereas if you were to use like your paper towel or something, you would waste a lot. So this way here, it might take a few minutes, but you don't waste anything. And this is something that my grandma, who lived through a depression, learned and taught me. Oh, Jesus, butterfingers, literally. Yeah, my grandma, she lived through a pandemic, and she taught me a lot of stuff, and I'm so grateful for that. She's still with us. Getting things ready. We start with our pans. We've got them greased. Now another trick that I learned is using parchment paper. Make sure it's not wax paper, it's got to be parchment paper, and putting that in there. Like, you still have to grease because the sides aren't covered, and you could try to cover the sides, but it's difficult. I just grease. And then if you got parchment paper in there, it's a lot easier to remove at the end when you're done. My brown sugar was solid as a rock. So another trick that I learned was you add just a little bit of water and you put it in the microwave to soften it up. And then that way there, it's a different texture, but it'll still taste the same, and you work with it. You want your bananas. And I've got a lot of bananas in here. This is six bananas. And then you want 1.5 cups of brown sugar. Sorry for the weird cuts. My cat is scratching the floor. I don't like that. So hopefully I have 1.5 cups of brown sugar, but or 1.25 cups, sorry. 1.25 cup brown sugar is what it calls for. And if I don't have quite enough, I will add a bit of white sugar if I have to. Okay, so there's not quite enough brown sugar, but that's okay, because I'm gonna add a little bit of white sugar just to top up this 1/4 cup. And then you add your margarine, or not margarine, I'm using butter for this. I should have kept my thing to, let's just create more dishes, why not? It's not like I don't have enough dishes to do already. Okay. Get all of it in there. Turn on the oven to 350 degrees. Start warming up. Hate funny bones. There's nothing funny about them. Anyways. Oh my God. Okay, since it's 4 o'clock in the morning, I am going to lift this off the counter to blend it. egg in there. We need some vanilla. Calls for a teaspoon, but I always add more than that. Who knows? We also need a 1/4 cup of milk. We are going to add, they call for a teaspoon of cinnamon, approximately a teaspoon of cinnamon, right? Cinnamon actually has antioxidants. It's very good for you. It may look funky, but it smells delicious. Okay, so now that that is all ready, we're going to start adding the dry ingredients together. I am going to add, it calls for 2 cups of flour, but I'm going to add an extra cup of flour because I've got extra wet ingredients. I've got extra bananas. I've got extra moisture in the brown sugar. So I'm going to add an extra 1/2 cup of flour. We need a teaspoon of baking powder. And I've tried a lot, I mean a lot of banana bread recipes, and this is my favorite. This part looks really weird, like be prepared, but it turns out really good. Like you don't get chunks of banana in there. Like it's really good. And I always add a little bit more vanilla and cinnamon than what the actual recipe calls for. 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Those I do follow. Like there's, you know, certain things you can't not follow. But the more you cook and bake, the more you kind of learn. So I'm just going to take a whisk just to mix this up a bit because they tell you to sift it, but I don't sift things. I actually think it's a waste of time. Now I got to mix this together slowly. So if you put the powdered stuff in first, before you put the wet stuff, when you're mixing, then it won't powder up all over yourself. And mix it that way. So just kind of top. So I paused, I cleaned up a bit, I got my pans ready to, well, I didn't do anything with them other than what you saw. I'm choking on myself, sorry. So I'm just gonna add batter to the pans. Sticking. Loaf ready to go in the oven. It looks amazing, smells amazing. The texture even looks good, even though it looked funky there. So like I said, trust me on that. this half, we're gonna add in some chocolate chips. So first we need to get everything down off the sides. Now the trick is to fold them in. You don't want to stir them. You kind of pull the batter over top of them. Because if you start stirring them, then what's going to happen is they start, like the chocolate will start kind of melting. And you don't want that. So, well, you might want that. You might want chocolate swirls in your banana bread, but I want chocolate like chips. So we are going to add this to our last pan and put them in the oven. So now that those are in the oven, those gotta bake for 40 minutes and then you take them out. You'll let them cool for 10 minutes before you take them out of the pan and let them dry on a drying rack if you have one, or worst case scenario, cutting board. So while those are baking, I am going to clean up this mess. Then I'm gonna take a break and start making pizza pops, because what else do you do at 25 after 4 in the morning when you're quarantined? Well, not quarantined, but you know what I mean. See you when the bread's done. They look done this time. I did take them out after the 40 minutes, and it's suggested to put in a toothpick, but I don't have toothpicks, so I used this. I'm gonna have to wipe it off though, because it's got batter on it. You pull it out, and you put it in, and when you pull it out, if there's batter on it still, it's not ready. And if it's clean, or there's just like cooked batter crumbs, then it's ready. Oh, chocolate, yeah. And make it hard to see if it's ready, but yeah, that's cooked crumbs. Sorry if you can hear Sniper Wolf screaming in the background. Yeah, and that's ready. Nothing came out there. So we're gonna let that cool for at least 10 minutes. Pop it out of the pan and it's ready. So thank you for joining me in this banana bread baking, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.